Today I'm talking about episode 19, which is Deus Ex Machina. This is the second Locke flashback episode, and I'm pretty sure that in the Lost Writers Room, when someone said, let's make a Locke episode, what they really were saying is, let's see how miserable we can make Locke for 40 minutes. Because that's really what it is. I mean, Locke-centric episodes are really just a vessel to show as much tragic backstory for Locke as possible while putting Locke through some horrible or traumatic event in the present day. I mean, that's really what it is. You look at Walkabout's relatively tame, and when you look at what happens to Locke in the present day. But I mean, you get this episode like Cabin Fever, or the life and death of Jeremy Bentham. Just all these episodes just are really hard on Locke. But this episode in particular, moving on, I mean, this is another great episode. Honestly, another one of the best of the seasons. I know after I'm done with this season, I'm going to tend to talk about season one as like a whole. Maybe do like a top 5 best episodes. So ranking these are going to be interesting, but this episode is really good. You know, you get a lot that happens in this episode. There's a lot of important stuff, important story stuff, and revelations and discoveries and stuff. Iconic moments. There's just so much in this episode. The core of this episode is, of course, the Locke and Boone story. About the hatch, and they find the Nigerian plane, the Beechcraft, and then that crashes. Boone gets hurt. Bring back to camp. That's how it ends. I feel like that's a very big. That's a very big oversimplification of the episode, but that is the core of it. And then you get the B storyline as well. Now, when I turned on the episode, I was like, okay, I know this episode is about Boone and Locke and the Beechcraft, but what is the B storyline? I don't remember. I was like, is it maybe the Sawyer in the reading glasses? But yeah, that was the B storyline. Just a little nothing plot. I mean, not nothing in a bad way, but just a relatively simple, somewhat insignificant plot. Sawyer's getting headaches. He needs glasses. You get nice humorous moments from there. Again, it's a trend from Lost where when the A storyline is something horrible and traumatic and death, the B storyline will be something lighter in tone in general. And so that's continuing on again. As much as I really like the latter half of the show and the more picked up pace, you do sacrifice some of these filler storylines. And I don't say filler episodes because there's really only one filler episode of Lost in my opinion, and that kind of comes in season 6. One episode that's kind of a filler episode, and that happens in season 6. But there are filler storylines, like Sawyer and the Sawyer and the reading glasses. That's a filler storyline, and you lose out on the filler storylines when you get into the more fast-paced storytelling of the latter seasons, 4, 5, and 6. Which again, I really like the faster-paced storytelling of 4, 5, and 6. I think if anything, I would maybe slow down season 6 a little bit. I don't know how well season 6 did a good job with the other aspect of season 6, the flash sideways. But I think you could have taken your time a little bit more and explored that a little bit more, and I wouldn't have mind. But 4 and 5 are two really great seasons in my opinion, and that's a lot due to the faster paced storytelling of that and the lack of filler in general. Again, there's no filler episodes, but filler storylines. And there's absolutely filler storylines, especially in I mean, especially in season 3, I feel like there's almost too much filler storylines in season 3. You can't really, skip expose, but that's, or Stranger in a Strange Land. But I mean, yeah, you can't really skip those episodes, even though you maybe kind of wish you could. But anyway, I'm talking about this episode. Uh, but so to talk more on the main storyline, I think I'll focus on that a little bit more. I might go back to the Sawyer stuff. Uh, a lot of important developments here. Obviously, not just with the Beechcraft, but the discovery of the heroin on there, which will come into play a lot, especially with Charlie and him facing that addiction of his, and the Nigerian aspect of it. These are Nigerian drug smugglers disguised as priests. We obviously know how that's going to play into the show again in season 2. The radio call that Boone receives. Another thing we know how it plays into when it comes to season 2. So maybe a lot of ways that are setting up for season 2. Because the heroin storyline doesn't really reemerge too much in this season for Charlie. It's much more for season 2. Fire and Water, which is somewhat of a controversial episode for some people. And then of course you have the flashbacks as well, which I mentioned. Flashbacks, it's really just showing how horrible Locke's life was before all this. And we get to meet a real gem of a character in Anthony Cooper, who is honestly like the worst human on the show. And I say human to just differentiate him from the smoke monster. And I don't know, maybe I'm forgetting somebody, but he's just a really terrible person. Like, he doesn't care about, doesn't seem like he cares about anybody but himself, and he's just, purposefully cruel and deceptive to Locke in these moments. I mean, he's by far the worst parent you have on the show. I mean, again, just for the fact that he doesn't care at all about his son. I think every other parent on the show, despite how bad they are, you do see that they care about their child to some level. Like, yes, Roger Linus, for example, is not a great parent, but we do see that he does care about Ben. Like, there is some side of him that might be potentially remorseful or regretful for, how he does. I mean, for how he's been. And, there might have been that chance of redemption for that character. And I think it probably comes in the Flash Sideways, because when we see him in the Flash Sideways in the present day with Ben. And it's interesting because Anthony Cooper in the Flash Sideways is like non-existent. He's like comatose. He can just blink. This is like all he can do. So I wonder what that says about where he's at, and if like that's not even really him. Like he's hopeless. He's beyond, and that thing in the chair just exists for the benefit of Locke. And I don't know. Again, I think I'm talking too much about upcoming stuff. I should focus on this episode. But yeah, so, it's just the whole flashback, him being a terrible person, steals Locke's kidney and just abandons him. I mean, goodness, like, a slightly less horrible person could have just, like, stuck around for a little bit. Like, I don't know, he's so cold and cruel. would it have killed him to hung out with Locke a couple days after, taking the kidney? Did he really need to just, like, you're done, I'm done with you? Like he didn't need to, like I think like Locke says in a future episode, he could have just asked, like, he didn't. I don't know. But yeah, and then there are some iconic, classic moments in the show. I feel like, I mean, in this episode, you get the Teresa falls up the stairs, Teresa falls down the stairs. I think that's something that just for whatever reason will sit with some people. Like, I don't know if it's really stuck there for other Lost fans, but that's something that's just always kind of stuck in the back of my head when it comes to Lost. I mean, you get more iconic stuff like the numbers or whatever happened. But I don't know. For some reason, the Teresa falls up the stairs, Teresa falls down the stairs. That just kind of like sticks at the back of your head sometimes. Which, I mean, I guess that happens with me for like random sayings from TV shows or movies, random quotes that kind of like, it's almost like they scratch an itch in your head in a way. The like the phrase cellar door. That's supposed to be very like verbally appealing or something. I think is that Donnie Darko where they talk about that? But anyway, and then you get some funny moments as well with the Sawyer storyline. Hurley has that great little one-liner about how Sawyer looks like someone steamrolled Harry Potter, and everyone's laughing about that. But then, of course, the whole thing leads towards this accident that happens where Boone gets injured with the plane crashing, and Locke brings him to Jack, who Jack now steps into high gear to try and save Boone's life. Oh, and you end with the very iconic shot of the light from the hatch coming on. Which I'm honestly more surprised that Desmond hasn't heard anything previous to this. I can imagine they've been doing some banging on that hatch for some time. I mean, the trebuchet would have made more noise than Locke banging his hands. Like, it's just like the repeated banging of it might have alerted Desmond more. And of course, it's great how that becomes such a great moment too when you see it from Desmond's perspective later on in the show. But yeah, I mean, again, there's just a lot of stuff to just. I mean, this is like one of the episodes. There's just so much. It's like hard to break down, almost hard to talk without just going on for hours. I gotta worry about my hand getting tired here. And then this is another instance of the island just arbitrarily deciding, no, I don't think you're going to be able to walk too well for these next couple hours. We're just gonna take away your leg privileges for the day, which I'm sure that's all something you can analyze. Some, just like the mental space that Locke is in this particular moment. Maybe he's doubting himself, or the island needs to test him in some way. And then you wonder, like, when you say the island is doing this or the island is doing that, you wonder how much of that is Jacob. Like, is Jacob just in his little foot statue and flips a switch and like, oh, Locke's not walking today. Oh, well, sorry, Locke. But yeah. So up next, we have Do No Harm. Another solid episode. Like I've said before, we're in the home stretch now. Once you get away from the middle of the season, you get like strong episodes back to back to back to back. So I mean, maybe with a slight slowdown for Greater Good and Born to Run, but Do No Harm is another solid episode. So yeah, I will talk about that then, and I'll see you guys next time.